You're listening to the Lawyer Lifestyle Podcast with Chicago attorney Dave Scriven-Young. This podcast is brought to you by Anchor, which is the app that I use to record and edit the Lawyer Lifestyle Podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, so let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so that it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 215 of the Lawyer Lifestyle Podcast for June 1st, 2020. My name is Dave Scriven-Young, an attorney from Chicago, Illinois, and I'll be your host. This podcast takes you on a daily journey to discover key principles in the areas of marketing, sales, and leadership for attorneys. So over this weekend, there's been really just what I would call a catastrophe, tragic circumstances around the country. We've had police that have been brutally violent against African American citizens. We've had protesters around the country having a peaceful protest against police brutality, combined with a really destructive force of people who took it upon themselves to destroy property, to attack police officers. And then we've seen police officers in response do a couple of different things, one of which was to, protect further property damage, and then just the terrible violence that continued against those folks as well. It just seems like there's such a vicious circle here, and I'm not here to preach at anybody because I don't have the solution. What I do know is that there's just so much going on in this country, and what we truly need is leadership. What we truly need is somebody or a group of people to stand up and to help us come to some real solutions, both legally, but also, I think, emotionally as well, because people are obviously hurting. And we need people to be heard, but we also need people to face justice, and we need people to help come up with solutions. So, one of the things that I think I've been talking about, and as we've gone through Dr. John C. Maxwell's book, Leadershift, is we've talked about, why you should give. And that you should give not just because it helps yourself, but because it helps the other person. And that's what a leader really does. It helps. You're here to be a resource and to have someone follow you to something greater than yourself. And so what we've seen, I think, throughout this, tragedy that's going on in our country is that we have seen people who are takers. We have police who are taking and using power to take the lives of other people. We've seen the rioters take power for themselves and destroy property. We've seen police retaliate. All of this is people who are taking things for themselves and not reaching out to other people. And so what I would say is what we really need our leaders to step up and to show how to give to others, how to give people space, how to give people a voice, how to give things to people that will help them. And I think that's just what it comes down to. As we talk about, communication styles, directing versus connecting, what are some things that we all can do as leaders to connect with other people? Well, Dr. Maxwell says that the fifth step is generosity, to give first and to give continually. He quotes Albert Einstein as saying, "A person first starts to live when he can live outside of himself." And it could also be said that a person starts to give when he lives outside of himself. And giving is a good way to connect with others. So what are ways that we could give as lawyers, as leaders, to provide or start to find a solution, if there is a solution? How can we make things better? I think that's the question that all of us need to ask as lawyers, as leaders. Whether it's giving up money to places like the Southern Poverty Law Center, or various other places that are trying to find a solution. Whether it's giving of pro bono services to, criminal defendants, to organizations that fight for justice. Whether it's giving your time to find solutions, to develop policies and leadership. One of the things that I've been thinking about is, I'm coming into co-chairing this alumni group for this public interest law organization that I'm fairly involved in and have been for many, many years. And I think one of the things that I want to do is talk about, implicit bias within the legal profession. And certainly we're seeing that in the police force. And what can we do as lawyers to, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's something that you can solve right now, because it seems so bad that you can't just push a button and things will be ended, because people are feeling such emotions over this issue, and certainly not one thing is going to not only solve the problem but placate the plight of decades, centuries of racial discrimination. But certainly as leaders, we can give. We can be generous with our time. We can be generous with our money. Because we owe it to our profession, we owe it to society to stand up as lawyers. And so, I don't know. This was certainly a different podcast episode than I'm used to doing, messages I'm used to giving. But these were just some of the thoughts, that I had. This is a daily podcast, and, certainly things that go on in the news and in society are certainly fair game. But thinking about as leaders, and for your daily action item, I really want you to think about, as a leader, as a lawyer, what can you do to stem the tide of racial discrimination? What can you do to be a voice for the solution, as opposed to continuing with the divisive attitude, the divisiveness that continues within our society? So I appreciate, as always, I appreciate you listening, and I would love to hear your comments. So I invite you to join into the discussion. You can leave me a voicemail by going to anchor.fm/attorneydsy, hitting that message button. You can leave me a comment for me to play on the show, or a question for me to answer on the show. And you can also leave a comment or question on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Attorney DSY. I'm also on LinkedIn on my personal profile. So let me know if you have any comments about this episode. Tell me what you think about this podcast, or give me a topic you would like to hear about. This podcast is on all the platforms, so if you have a moment, it would be great for you to subscribe and rate and review. I also want to invite you to the next session of the Lawyer's Emotional Intelligence Book Club. We're continuing on with Dr. Chatterjee's book, The Stress Solution. We have a scheduling change where we usually do it on Wednesdays nights, but this week we're going to do it on Thursday, June 4th at 8:30 p.m. Central. You can find out more at facebook.com/lawyersEQ if you're feeling stressed out. I think we all are, not only because of what's happened over this past weekend, but also because of the coronavirus and unemployment and everything else that's going on in our world. So I think it would be a great time for all of us to get together and to talk about, we're talking specifically about, friendship and how we need to prioritize friendship in our lives. And I think a coming together and connecting is something that we all can do, especially something that we need now. So have a great day or night, and remember to fight for the lifestyle that you want and become the rainmaker that you need to be.